A very good morning, students. How are you all? I hope you all are fine and safe at your home. So let's start with the continuation of the same chapter. Chapter number 3, Swami and Friends, written by R.K. Narayan and taken from a very interesting book, Malgudi Days. Fine. So we are on page number 23. On third paragraph, we have to start. Let's start it. When the work for the day was over, Swaminathan, Mani and Rajam adjourned to a secluded spot to say what was in their minds. Swaminathan stood between them and acted as the medium of communication. They were so close that they could have heard each other even if they had spoken in whispers. But it was a matter of form between enemies to communicate through a medium. Mani faced Swaminathan steadily and asked, "Are you a man?" Now what happened when the day was completely over, when the work day was over, then Swaminathan, Mani and Rajam just adjourn, means they all recollect at a secluded spot, means at a single point, to say what was in their mind, to speak everything from their mind. Now Swaminathan stood between Rajam and Mani and he acted as a medium of communication between them. Since Rajam is saying to Swaminathan, he was directing that words to Mani. Fine. Now what Mani said, since Mani was very much in the form of rival with Rajam, now Mani said to Swaminathan that asked Rajam that, "Are you a man?" Swaminathan turned to Rajam and repeated, "Are you a man?" Rajam flared up and shouted, "Which dog doubts it?" Flared up means just he got irritated up, and getting too much irritated, he just shouted. Swaminathan turned up to Mani and said ferociously, "Which dirty dog doubted it?" Ferociously means that when Swaminathan spoke this to Rajam, then he turned up to Mani and said ferociously, instantly, with the same attitude, "Which dirty dog doubts it? Have you the courage to prove that you are a man?" asked Mani. Now Swaminathan turned to Rajam and repeated this. How? How? Repeated Swaminathan to Mani. "Meet me at the river near Nalapa's Grove tomorrow evening." Now what happened? After repeating all these words, now he have to prove, Rajam have to prove that he is a man. So what Mani said, that meet at the river, Nalapa's Grove river, tomorrow evening. Near Nalapa's Grove, Swaminathan was pleased to echo. "What for?" asked Rajam. Since Rajam was asked to come there, now definitely he will ask, "What for I have to come there?" "To see if you can break my head." "Oh, to pieces?" said Rajam. "To see if you can break my head." These words are said by Mani, that because Rajam asked, "For what?" Then Mani replied, "To see whether you can break my head or not." Then what Rajam replied? "Oh, to pieces." Swaminathan's services were dispensed with. They gave him no time to repeat their words. Rajam shouted in one ear and Mani in the other. Now what happened? Since Swaminathan getting the service of code of communication as a medium of communication between Mani and Rajam, now since they are getting in too much high volume, that Swaminathan's services was dispensed. It was ignored. It was cancelled. No one is giving importance to him now. They are naturally talking to each other now, because since their voice is too much high, that naturally their talks were getting into one-to-one ears directly only. They don't need any medium of communication now. Fine. "So we may expect you at the river tomorrow," said Swaminathan. Yes, Rajam assured them. Mani wanted to know if the other would come with guards. Now, since Rajam was a very rich man, rich boy, belongs to a very rich family, so Mani was thinking maybe he can come with the guards or not. So Mani just make it confirm whether you will come with the guards or not. No, he would not. And Mani voiced another doubt. Now another doubt he just said. If anything happens to you, will you promise to keep it out of your father's knowledge? Means, if anything happens to you, will you keep it out of your father's knowledge? Since his father is police superintendent, so he want that this knowledge should be out of his father concern. So he asked, will you keep out this knowledge out of your father's knowledge? Rajam promised after repudiating the very suggestion that he might act otherwise. Now, what happened? Rajam promised after this that this will not happen, and my father is completely he will not be aware about all this thing. Repudiating means refusing the very suggestion that he might act otherwise. Nalapa's grove stood a few yards before them. It was past 6 and the traffic for the day between the banks was over. The usual evening crowd was far behind them. Swaminatham and Mani were squatting on the sand. Squatting means sitting on their heels on the sand. They were silent. Mani was staring at the ground with a small wooden club under his arm. He was thinking he was going to break Rajam's head in a short while and throw his body into the river. But if it should be recovered, but then how could they know that he had done it? Now what happened? Since Nalapa's grove stood a few yards before them, it was past 6 going on and completely traffic was over that time. Fine. Now, since the Nalapa's grove was between the banks was over, and the usual evening crowd was completely away from that point. Now what Swaminatham and Mani was squatting there, sitting over their heels, now as they were silent. Now when Mani was sitting, he was just thinking that I will do like this with Rajam, I will just crack his head and I will just throw him in his body into the river if he died. But if it should be recovered, and what happened if it should be found out? Then how could they know that he had done it? But if Rajam should come and trouble him at night as a ghost, now he was like getting a little afraid that if I made him die, that if him come is my night dream and make me afraid of becoming ghost, then what happened? Since his grandfather died, he was sleeping alone. Since after his grandfather is no more, from then he was sleeping alone. And now when he make die the Rajam also, then if he will come as a ghost in his dream, then what happened? What if Rajan should come and pull his hair at night? Now he is completely afraid of it. After all, it would be better not to kill him. After all, after thinking a lot, after going into his dreams and all, what he thought now? That it's better not to kill him. It's better to give him a nice beat or to crack his head, everything to do, but not better to kill him. He would content himself with breaking his limbs and leaving him to his fate. Now what he will do? He will break his limbs and just leave him on his fate. Fate, you understand what you mean by fate? You have heard a Hindi word known as kismat. That is fate. He should batter his head. Who was going to find it out? Means if he would strike his head, batter means to strike his head, then who was going to find it out? Unless of course he cast a sly look at Swaminatham, who was blinking innocently. Since Swaminatham is not in his right deed also, in his wrong deed also, what he did? He just innocently giving a yes from his head. Unless of course Swaminatham informed the police. Now what he said, that until unless Swaminatham will inform, no one will get to know that who has strike on his head. At the sound of the creaking of boots, they turned and found that Rajam had come. He was dressed in khaki and carried under his arm an air gun that was given to him a couple of months ago on his birthday. He stood very stiff and said, "Here I am ready." Now what happened? When they are sitting on their heels, they just see that there is some sound coming of the boots. And when they just turn back, what they found? That Rajam is there. And what Rajam is wearing? He's wearing a khaki dress, having an air gun under his arms, which he got on his birthday few months back. You are late. Yes. Now who said you are late? Mani said you are late. And what Rajam replied? Yes. We will start. Then again Mani said, let's start the fight. Rajam shouldered his gun and fired a shot in the air. Mani was startled. He stood still, his club down. Now what happened? As soon as Mani said, let's start the fight, what did Rajam did? Just take off his air gun out from his from his shoulder and just fired a shot in the air. And now Rajam was startled. He was just seeing continuously. He didn't know what had happened actually. He stood still, and his club, which was having in his hand to break Rajam's head and limbs, was down now. You heard the shot? Asked Rajam. The next is going to be into your body, if you are keen upon a fight. Now what Rajam replied? Have you heard that shot which I fired in the air? The next will be going into your body. Have you heard it? And if you are keen, so let's start with it. But this is unfair. I have no gun while you have. It was to be hand-to-hand fight. But Man said that this is wrong. Yesterday we discussed that it's a hand-to-hand fight. So why do you have brought this air gun? I don't have such things like with me. Then what Rajam replied? Then why have you brought your club? You never said anything about it yesterday. Mani hung down his head. Since Mani, repeating Mani words only, Rajam said that you didn't say that you will bring club yesterday. Then why have you? Mani was very shy that time because that Mani words put wrong on Mani only. And he was hung down. His head was completely ashamed now. What I have done to offend you? Asked Rajam. What I have done to offend you means, what have I done that you want a rival with me? You want a fight with me? You called me a sneak before someone. Then he replied that you called me a sneak before someone. You said me a sneak before someone. That is a lie. What he said? That is a lie. I didn't call you a sneak before someone. That there was an awkward pause. Now what happened? There was an awkward, completely silent pause. Since, what do you mean by sneak? Sneak means to say or to do something very secretly. Fine. If this is all the cause of your anger, forget it. I won't mind it. Since Rajam is a very studious boy, what he said simply, if this is your cause of anger, because I didn't say anything like this for you, and if this is your cause of anger, then forget it. And if I don't mind also, if you want me to be your friend. Replied by the Mani, nor I. Mani replied, I also don't mind. So let's be friends. Swaminatham gasped with an astonishment. Now what happened? Swaminatham gasped. Gasped means to take a deep breath with an open mouth. He just took a deep breath and he was completely surprised. Astonished means surprised. In spite of his posting before Mani, he admired Rajam intensely. Means, since he was very much in yes and no with Mani, now in spite of saying yes or no, he just very much intensely means very much admire Rajam, and now he launched to be his friend. Now this was the happiest conclusion, this was the happiest ending to all the unwanted trouble. He danced with joy. Who? Mani danced with joy. Rajam lowered his gun. Mani dropped his gun. Since the enemies turns into a good friends. To show his goodwill, Rajam pulled out his pocket half a dozen biscuits. Now what Rajam did? To show his goodness, he just took out a half a dozen biscuits from his pocket and just want him to eat it as a symbol of a good friendship, a new friendship. The river smiled rumble. The river smiled rumble, the rustling of the people leaves, the half light of the late evening, and the three friends eating. Now what happened? The river mild rumble, starting mild rumbling, the rustling of the people leave, the sound made by the dry leaves, the half light of the late evening, and the three friends eating and glowing with new friendship. And now Swaminathan is at perfect peace, since he is becoming a medium of communication. Since the friendship is turned into a good one, enemies are turned into a good friendship. Now he is no more a medium of communication. He is now living a very peaceful and quiet life. So yes, I hope you have understood this chapter very well now. Yes, but animation makes us things more clear. Yes or no? Yes. So let's start with seeing a animation video. Yes? So just see here.
Swaminathan and Mani sat aloof on the steps of river Sarayu with their legs dangling in water.
I'm going to bring Rajam here, bundle him up and throw him into the river,
said Mani. Rajam was a fresh arrival in the first A. He had sauntered into the class on the reopening day of the second term, walked up to the last bench, sat beside Mani, and felt very comfortable indeed till Mani gave him a jab in the ribs, which he returned. He had impressed the whole class on the very first day. He was a newcomer. He dressed very well and came to the school in a car. This Rajam was a rival to Mani. In his manner to Mani, he assumed a certain nonchalance to which Mani was not accustomed. And add to all this, the fact that Rajam was a regular 70%er, second only to Sankar. All this lay behind his decision on the river step to bundle up Rajam and throw him into the river.
And that reminds me, you are in need of a little warning. I find you hanging about that Rajam a bit too much. Well, have a care for your limbs. That is all I can say.
Swaminathan broke into loud protestations. Did Mani think that Swaminathan could respect anyone but him? Mani, the dear old friend and guide? What made him think so? As far as Swaminathan could remember, he had never been within 3 yards of Rajam. Oh, there was no comparison between Rajam and Mani. This pleased Mani greatly. Swaminathan was to act as a cord of communication between Rajam and Mani. They were sitting in the last bench with their backs against the yellow wall. Mani wrote on a piece of paper, "Are you a man?" and gave it to Swaminathan, who pushed it across to Rajam, putting on as offensive a look as possible. Rajam read it, crumpled it, and threw it away, at which Mani wrote another note, repeating the question with the addition, "You are an idiot if you don't answer this," and pushed it across. Rajam hissed into Swaminathan's face,
"You idiot, don't disturb me,"
and crumpled the letter. Further progress was stopped. Swaminathan paid no attention to the rest of the lessons. When the work of the day was over, Swaminathan, Mani and Rajam adjourned to a secluded spot to say what was in their minds. Swaminathan stood between them and acted as the medium of communication. Mani faced...
Since you were asking me the medium of communication meaning, so now I think you got it. Yes, how you see that Swaminathan acted as a medium of communication between them and this used to spoke between them. Yes?
Swaminathan steadily and asked,
"Are you a man?"
Swaminathan turned to Rajam and repeated,
"Are you a man?"
Rajam flared up and shouted,
"Which idiot doubts it?"
Swaminathan turned to Mani and said ferociously,
"Which idiot doubts it? Have you the courage to prove that you are a man?"
asked Mani. Swaminathan turned to Rajam and repeated it.
"How?" "Meet me at the river near Nalappa's grove tomorrow evening." "What for?"
asked Rajam.
"To see if you can break my head." "Oh, to pieces,"
said Rajam.
"So, we may expect you at the river tomorrow,"
said Swaminathan.
"Yes,"
Rajam assured them. Mani wanted to know if the other would come with guards. No, he would not. And Mani voiced another doubt.
"If anything happens to you, will you promise to keep it out of your father's knowledge?"
Rajam promised after repudiating the very suggestion that he might act otherwise. Nalappa's grove stood a few yards before them. Swaminathan and Mani were squatting on the sand. Mani was staring at the ground with a small wooden club under his arm. Mani thought he would content himself with breaking Rajam's limbs and leaving him to his fate. If he should batter his head, who was going to find it out? Unless, of course, he cast a sly look at Swaminathan, who was blinking innocently. Unless, of course, Swaminathan informed the police. At the sound of the creaking of boots, they turned and found that Rajam had come with an air gun. He stood very stiff and said,
Here I am, ready. You are late. Yes, we will start.
Rajam shouldered his gun and fired a shot in the air. Mani was startled.
You heard the shot?
Asked Rajam.
The next is going to be into your body if you are keen upon a fight. But this is unfair. I have no gun while you have. It was to be a hand-to-hand fight. Then why have you brought your club? You never said anything about it yesterday.
Mani hung down his head.
What have I done to offend you?
Asked Rajam.
You called me a sneak before someone. That is a lie.
There was an awkward pause.
If this is all the cause of your anger, forget it. I won't mind being friends. Nor I,
said Mani. Swaminathan gasped with astonishment. In spite of his posing before Mani, he admired Rajam intensely and longed to be his friend. Now this was the happiest conclusion to all the unwanted trouble. He danced with joy. Rajam lowered his gun and Mani dropped his club. To show his goodwill, Rajam pulled out of his pocket half a dozen biscuits. The three friends sat eating and glowing with new friendship. Swaminathan felt at perfect peace with the world.
So now you saw the animation video also, and yes, now what your work to do? Just read this chapter once again. I think if my words are not very much clear to you, this animation video has cleared each and every doubt of yours. That what is the basic theme and summary of the story, yes? So read this story once from your side also. If any doubt, will be sorted in the Zoom class. Fine? Thank you so much. That's for today.